Most of you probably know that I'm really into yoga, talking about it all the time. And in this week's episode, I tell you about why I think my yoga practice is so helpful at midlife. And I share my thoughts on how to find a teacher, what type of yoga to do. I answer questions like, is yoga religion? All that kind of stuff. I also talk a little bit about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and the Mac store. Believe it or not, they all work together. I hope you like the episode. The Change Guru podcast is brought to you by my books, Be Your Own Change Guru and How to Find Your Purpose After 40. They're available on Amazon, and if you like the show, buying a book is an awesome way to show your support for what I'm doing. And now, here's the podcast.
The Change Guru. Listen up. You are the guru of your own midlife change. Gotta take it and own it, don't be restricted by age. What's the number anyway? Live your dreams, don't hesitate. You're the change guru, you're the change guru. This is the time to step up, make your dreams come true. Whatever the change, it all starts with you. Whether it's life's purpose, relationships or career. Whatever the change, it's time to get what you want, what you really, really want. Make a change in midlife and still look really hot. Listen here, don't have fear. You're the master of your fate, you're the woman of the year. I mean it, change your life forever. I mean it, it's not too late, no never. I said I mean it, change your life forever. I mean it, it's not too late, no never, ever, yeah. The Change Guru, all starts with you.
Everybody, welcome to the Change Guru podcast, episode number 25. 25 and feeling alive. Sue Paget here, and this is a place where we have a conversation about all things midlife. My intention for this podcast and every podcast that I do is to share with you things that I've learned getting up to this point. So if you are, say you're like under 40 and you're listening to this and you're wondering what's ahead, and all you've heard are these crazy, silly horror stories about perimenopause, menopause, life beyond, I'm hoping that I can just convey to you that this is a really awesome time of life. You have no idea how good this time is. If you're stuck in the middle of it like I am, I'm going to share with you what I'm going through in real time, how I deal with things, and pass on every single thing that I can possibly pass on to you. And my hope is that for all of us, we can really choose the direction that we're heading in, rather than feeling like we're just kind of twisting in the wind and at the whim of whatever forces propel us. I feel like we've got some free will here, and we kind of know ourselves emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. At this stage, we know ourselves so well, so we can really make some really strong decisions to point ourselves in the direction of the way we want to go in life. Just in case you don't know, I did podcasts. I did an earlier version of these podcasts where I think I got up to like 65, 70-ish or so podcasts. I started off on Blog Talk Radio. They're all on iTunes. It's just kind of the original Change Guru podcast. So if you need more free podcasts of mine, go over there and check them out. I think what is also probably cool about them is there's a lot more interviews. I did more interviews with people that have an impact, that had impacted me at midlife. So I have more interviews. Also, I think you might be able to see my growth maybe as a podcaster. So if you are starting an online business or you're starting a new business, you can see kind of how you can grow. I really like the idea, even though a lot of times it's kind of cringe-worthy for me to look at old videos or listen to old podcasts. I like being able to share my experience as I grow in my business and what I do. So if you need some inspiration of just starting with kind of nothing, no experience in anything, please, by all means, go ahead and listen to my old podcast. But the bottom line is the message in them is the same, sharing with you everything that I'm going through, things that I'm learning, and just figuring out together how to make life great for midlife and beyond. Now, before we get started, let's do some business. First of all, go to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to watch my videos. I do videos every single week on things ranging from how my whole gray hair adventure is going. Yep, it is finally looking gray. There is no doubt in my mind right now my hair is looking gray, just fine. It's just fine. And this week I did a video about being in a funk. I really, truly have been in such a funk. I think part of it kind of came because a couple things happened. First of all, my computer went kaput on me, which was a drag. It's only a few months old. It's a Mac, and it was just one of those weird things where the cable wasn't connecting, so I had no power charge. So I took it in. I'm going to tell the story in a second. Let's just get to the business right now. Focus, Susan, focus. I think I'm coming out of my funk because I'm starting to feel excited. My brain's starting to fire, so it's really cool. So that was kind of the final straw for me, but it had kind of been building because, as I told you in a recent podcast, how I injured my arm, and that kept me from writing, which got me a bit off track with working on my book, which is about my gray hair adventure. And so that kind of threw me off my habits of it just kind of got me into a little bit of a writer's block situation. Then this computer thing happened. Then the computer going out on me set into a chain of events, a lot of stupid things that weren't working. I have a replacement computer, but it didn't have the right editing system on it for podcasts or for videos. A whole host of problems that are just too boring to even go through. But the bottom line is I got clogged up. I really needed like a colonic for my brain because I just really couldn't do anything. It's not the first time it happens. It happens. Especially it happens for creatives, I think, because our minds go really fast and we are drawing from a lot of energy to create things. And I think what happens is when you have a big extreme amount of output, you can just also go kind of just the opposite of it. I'm trying to think of Tim Ferriss has a really awesome quote. It's kind of goes along the line of there's no biological free lunches. So in other words, if you do something with your body, whether you have a lot of energy coming out, you expel a lot of energy or whatever, you're going to have times where you go low too. So that's kind of what happened to me. But rather than stress out about it, because it's happened before, in fact, what always happens to me is I go into these funks, but then I come out and I'm like recharged. I just let it happen now, and I go the total opposite. I hadn't all my computers weren't working, things like that, so I just went to the beach and just filmed something really basic, and it was my how to get out of a funk video. So that's on YouTube. It's also on my Facebook page. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Come on over to my Facebook page. Like me on Facebook over at thechangeguru.net. There's links to everything. I've also got links everywhere for my newsletter. Every 7 to 10 days, I shoot you out an email where I share little bits and pieces of my life and give you some tips and solutions. And my hope is that you take those little pieces away and you give yourself 5 minutes just to read them, think about how you can use them in your own life. And the cool thing is that I've got a great dialogue going on with people on my newsletter. I get really great suggestions for podcasts and videos, and that's what I'm trying to integrate more of that in the videos and podcasts that I do. In fact, this particular episode of the podcast is inspired by Kristen Bukta from Anchorage, Alaska, who connected with me on my YouTube channel wanting to know about yoga and injuries and things like that. So I'm going to talk more about that in just a second, but that's if you've got any ideas for podcasts, for videos, any questions at all, throw them at me. But the people on my newsletter, we've got a little bit of a thing going on, and I really love the connection that we have. So get on my newsletter so you can be part of that thing. Don't forget about my books, Be Your Own Change Guru, The Ultimate Women's Guide for Thriving at Midlife, and How to Find Your Purpose After 40. You can find those at Amazon. And I think that's enough business for right now. Let me tell you a couple things about my funky week. So I go to the Mac store in Sydney to take my laptop in, and this Mac store, I've only seen a couple Mac stores in other parts of the world. I've seen it in LA on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. I think I've seen it at the Beverly Center too, and I've also seen it in Thailand and Bangkok. And they're biggish stores, I suppose, but the one in Sydney is like something out of a science fiction movie. It's in the heart of the CBD. It's this huge building that's all made of glass. It's like Logan's Run on steroids in there. It's weird. It's a weird place, and it's always full. It's always full of people. I don't know what. Like everyone's on every area of that store is completely full. Every demo, laptop, iPhone, iPad, iPod, it's just full, right? So I get there. I take my little laptop in, and I get there probably about 12 or 1 o'clock, and they said, I just seen if I could just get in, and no, the next appointment is for a week later. And I was like, what that? And they told me that 1,000 people a day go into that store. And later on, I was told 400 people coming in, going to what they call the Genius Bar to get their stuff serviced, are dealt with a day. 400 a day, 1,000 people a day. Seriously, I can't even believe there's that many people in Australia. I mean, and just the idea that we are all so hooked into this whole Mac cult. I've been in the Mac cult since I was I think that my husband Dale and we bought our first Mac. It was like 1995. It was like that one that had the clear plastic green and blue. It was really innovative because it was just it looked sexy. It was really cool. But since then, we've been buying all these Macs. We have these iPhones, the iPads, or whatever, and you just get so sucked into their vortex of having to do things their way. But the problem is they're so nice. Like the people that work there are so nice and so efficient. So it's just like at one point you're going, I really got to try another company here. And then the other point is you're being treated so well that you just really think that there's no choice. And I know for those of you that use PC, and there are other choices, but for the work I do, Mac is what I need. But anyways, you can't help but feel like, man, I'm really sucked into this company in a way I've never been sucked into any kind of company before in my life. Well, maybe except for Levi's. I always have to have a pair of Levi jeans. Okay, so the guy tells me, go, look, there's not going to be, you can't get in for another week, but come in first thing in the morning, and chances are one of our technicians will be able to see you. So I get there really early the next day, and I come in, and he's super nice, super, super nice, super, super efficient. It's all under warranty, so then they're going to have to take my computer for 3 to 5 days. I literally just got a call like 2 minutes ago before I started doing this podcast that my computer's ready to be picked up. So I'm going to go pick it up, and everything's going to be fine. Next week I'll be completely back to normal and stuff. But it was really fascinating being there first thing in the morning, because not only is this place like so, hello, come and buy your computer, come and be with us for the rest of your life and only buy our products. It was really interesting watching all of the people that work there come into work, because I got there early before it opened so I could be first in line, because there was a line for people like me who wanted to just try and get in without an appointment. This place is incredible. The weird thing is I on the way over there, I was on a commuter boat to get in the city. It's called the Manly Ferry, and it was like the 8 o'clock in the morning boat, and I was in my Levi's and my running around clothes, and everyone around me was in their suits and getting ready to go to work, and everyone just seemed so miserable. There was just a vibe that it was I don't want to go to work vibe. So that was really interesting. And then so everyone's going to work, and then I'm in front of the Mac store, and the technicians and salespeople for Mac start coming in, and they're all full-on hipsters. They're all total hipsters coming in, and they actually looked quite happy. It was like Revenge of the Nerds. The nerds shall inherit the earth. And then I guess they go in there and they change into their Mac clothes. And then I watched them as they were getting ready for the stores to open. They all have like earpieces and stuff, and the main, whoever was their main manager was telling them to stand properly, and they're all standing waiting for the hordes of people to come inside. It was fascinating watching this machine called the Mac store getting ready for business. So anyways, I have been operating without a computer. There was another thing I wanted to tell you that I think contributed to my being blocked for this week, last couple of weeks. I felt like I watched more TV than usual this week because I was blocked maybe and gave myself permission to watch TV. I tape everything. So I had taped a bunch of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills that I just taped. I hadn't watched. And also I felt like, okay, I'm blocked this week. I should watch some stuff because we're gonna, the word is not, we are going to, it's going to come to me in a second. Well, we're going to get rid of our cable because we're just going to be Netflixing it, and all the we just feel like we don't even watch much television right now. We're just going to get stuff off of Apple TV, Apple again, and we're just getting rid of our cable. It's just ridiculous to have it. So I wanted to watch had a bank of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. If you're on my newsletter, you know that's one of my guilty pleasures. I do like the Housewives. Only Beverly Hills, New York. Maybe sometimes the OC. But I banked up some Housewives, so I watched a couple episodes of Housewives, and that show, it was really depressing. I can't stand, it's like I can't tolerate the amount of alcohol that they drink on that show. I don't think it's funny. I actually felt like... for those of you that watch The Housewives, the episode that I watched was the one where Brandy and Kim were fighting with Kyle, and they were all completely drunk. And every scene on that show, they are drinking. They're always at a party or a function or something. They're always drinking. So I know it's maybe not reality of how these segments, how these shows are edited. They're just back-to-back alcohol fest, but this was actually depressing because it was like watching women that are really they're really substance abusers. They've really got serious problems, and I felt sad for them in that they get commended and appreciated and a lot of validation for who they are because they're famous. And so their game is completely encouraged, but you know what's going to happen to these women? I mean, it's just like it's watching a train wreck, and by watching this train wreck, I guess I'm participating in in whatever's going to happen to them. I mean, some of the women on the show are clearly alcoholics, and it's really, really depressing. So that kind of depleted me. We taped the. Let My Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, the Australia version. I'd never seen it before, and Marsha Brady is on it. So we watched the first episode, and I found it to be so degrading to what these people had to go through for our entertainment. And so I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit off reality television. What I did, though, to counter those things is I just went to the library and I got a bunch of books. And so I had to really get myself, I had to say, okay, TV's not working for me this time. Go in the water, jump in the ocean, feel good in that way. Go to the library, get a bunch of books. And it's funny how attached we are to the computer. When the computer goes, when your business is online, it's just like, what do I do? But one thing that's really kept me consistent through this whole time of being completely funked up is my yoga practice. And that's what I want to talk about today. Yoga has always been a friend to me since I started practicing 16 years ago. I started practicing when I was 36 years old. So in a weird way, I was kind of, I guess you could pretty much call that midlife. It's beginning my yoga practice at midlife. And what I want to do in this episode is to share with you how to begin a yoga practice at midlife for all things. So Kristen from Anchorage, Alaska, wanted to know how to deal with injuries using yoga as a tool. And she's recovering from a back injury that she got during a Bikram yoga practice. So I'm going to kind of talk about, let's just drill it down even further to just beginning a yoga practice at midlife altogether. And I'm going to give some ideas for dealing with injury there. But just if you have thought about doing yoga, you weren't quite sure about it, or you are really involved in your practice, hopefully I'm going to give you some things that are going to make you feel really great about your practice, or are going to make you think, maybe I should try this thing after all. Now, let's just start about the basics of yoga, and I think let's just go with the elephant in the room. Is yoga a religion? Is yoga a religion? And the thing about yoga is, the short answer for me, the way I answer is yes, yoga has religious roots. It's rooted down in the Hindu religion. And this is very conflicting for people because there are some forms of Christianity that really are completely against yoga. There are some Islamic, some people in Islamic faith are really against it. I think even some people in Jewish faith are really against it because you're basically doing things that are counter to what you've been told in religion. So, for example, the most basic part of a yoga practice is a thing called a sun salutation. And if you want to drill deep into the religious connection of it, I suppose you're worshiping the sun, right? And some religions, let's take the Jewish religion, you're not supposed to be worshiping anything else. So if we want to be really honest about yoga and religion, yep, it definitely has religious roots in Hinduism. So for some of you that might feel like, okay, check please, this yoga thing is not for me, what I do want to say is that the physical part of yoga is really powerful and really important. So if you can't get past the concept that this is a thing that does have religious roots, then most likely you're never going to see in a Western kind of class situation, then I really suggest try out Pilates. There are even religious forms of other alternative religious forms of yoga, like there is Christian yoga. Okay, so there are other forms of taking yoga postures and called them other things, or there's non-religious forms of yoga where the whole Hindu thing has been completely stripped out, so all you're doing is the exercises. But Pilates would be a really good option that in some ways is going to at least, I think, give you the same physical effects. For me, I don't have any problems at all with the religious roots of yoga. I've never found it conflicting to any spiritual beliefs that I had. To be honest with you, I had no spiritual beliefs at all. I've never been gravitated towards traditional religion at all. It's never connected with me. What practicing yoga for me did in the way of spirituality is it helped me to develop compassion for myself. It helped me, and how do you develop compassion for yourself by doing yoga? Well, for me, I think that when your nose eventually makes it down to your knees and you're staring at your skin and you're looking at, like this morning I was, my head was in my knees and I was looking at my legs and I could see ingrown hairs and I could see age spots and I could see wrinkles, and rather than saying, ew, yuck. I was just like, beautiful legs. Thank you, legs. So I think that yoga's really taught me that, because you just learn to have more compassion for yourself when you see what your legs can do, when they gain more flexibility, when you realize how they hold you up. So yoga taught me that kind of compassion. There are certain practices, and certain teachers will say things that remind you to have compassion throughout the world. So I started to learn compassion for myself, and I started to learn compassion for others. I also started to learn about respect and traditions in a way that I really didn't learn in any other forms of my life other than just my family. So, I never learned about respect and traditions and things from the business that I was in. I never learned about respect and traditions from jogging or from doing aerobics classes, but there was something about the quiet and the solitude and the focus of a yoga class through the right teachers that kind of facilitated this kind of spiritual feeling. So yoga, yes, it does spring from the Hindu religions, but you're not going to feel it in how you choose to interpret the little bits of religious aspects of it, like the names of the poses, like Surya Namaskara is the name of sun salutation. Are you going to is that going to bother you that it's that there is a form of sun worship in there, or is it going to bother you if people want to put their hands into a prayer position and say namaste? Or is it going to bother you if a teacher wants to chant Om, the primordial sound of the universe that Buddhists and Hindus chant? Is that going to push a button for you? To me, it didn't push any buttons for me. It gives me, I feel like being contemplative and having this time of a moving meditation enhances my life. But that's just me. So that's the cat out of the bag as far as religion goes. And what is yoga? Yoga itself, it's the term it means it's a union. It's a yoking of the body, the mind, and the spirit. And I think that's what differentiates it between for example, let's say walking. I walk all the time, right? And when I'm walking, I know it's helping my body, and that's fine, but I also will use that time to really sort out problems, to think about things, whatever. In my yoga practice, the aim of yoga is to focus on a few different things. So I do my best to not be trying to sort out the problems of my universe while I'm doing my yoga practice. In my yoga practice, my eyes are usually at one spot. That's the aim, for them to be at one spot. I'm doing certain things with my body parts, and I'm doing something with my breathing in a attempt to just gain a universal connection between body, mind, and soul. So I'm trying to not think, which is obviously impossible, versus when I'm walking, I'm trying to really think hard. So that's why yoga can be really cool, and that's maybe the difference between yoga and Pilates. Is yoga is going to definitely work on your mind and on your body and your core, and all that's going to give you awesome well-being. But it's maybe not necessarily going to be something that is going to emphasize contemplation, emphasize meditation, emphasize a spiritual connection the way yoga tends to. So that's what yoga is. Now, I do a practice of yoga. There is a lot of different kinds of yoga, and what is cool about that is there is a yoga for every kind of person. I remember taking a yoga class when I was in college, when I was like 19 years old. It was so bloody boring. I mean, I was just like, get me out of here. I'm dying here. I couldn't stand it. And that's because at the time I didn't know that there's a lot of different types of yoga. I basically avoided it the whole time. So there is yoga if you don't really like to exercise, you like to take things really, really slow. There is a yoga if you are an A type of personality. That's the type of yoga that I do. There is a type of yoga if you are going through injuries like Kristen was talking about. There's a type of yoga if you just really love to sweat. There's a type of, so there's a type of yoga for every kind of personality, every type of fitness level, everything. So one thing that I do want to say is if you're starting a yoga practice, just be willing to kiss a few frogs. Be willing to try a bunch of different things, and it might mean trying different styles. It might mean trying different types of teachers. And you will find the person, but you might have to go on a bit of a treasure hunt to find the right thing. The great thing is that yoga is so popular, it's so much easier to find someone more than ever. In fact, when I was looking at Kristen's neck of the woods, I was looking at Anchorage, Alaska yoga. There's a lot of yoga there in Anchorage. So, I mean, there are a lot of resources out there. Let's first go into the different types of yoga. So first of all, the most common type of yoga is hatha yoga, and that's traditionally a really gentle type of yoga. That's probably the type of yoga that I went to when I was in college and I didn't like it anymore. Now, if I took that kind of class, I would probably really love it. And the reason is because I think I'm a lot more mature in my knowledge of yoga. I know how to settle and slow my body and mind down and get really into it. Back in the day when I was a young girl, 19, I was really I had to be really entertained in the brain, and everything had to be on high octane. So I just really didn't have the emotional, the maturity, and the physical propensity to really gravitate towards that type of yoga. So if you like things gentle, you really want to dip your toe into it easy, hatha yoga is for you. So I think it's for people who aren't really that comfortable exercising, or it's completely the opposite, for people who really work their bodies a lot and need something very, very, very gentle. I think as far as recovering from injury goes, it could be possible, but you'll want to make sure the teacher is right for that. But that's probably a safe environment. Another type of yoga is called Iyengar yoga. It was created by a teacher who recently passed away, BKS Iyengar, and it is a form of yoga that is all about alignment, how we hold our body, and being very, very precise. So you hold postures for a long time. You use equipment like bolsters and straps and chairs. It's very precise. Certified Iyengar teachers go through a lot of training, so there's a lot of knowledge. But it takes a type of again, you'd want to be a person who can really be patient, I think, with patient and be willing to be in a posture for a long amount of time. But the thing about Iyengar, it's also part of the same lineage as the type of yoga that I do, which is called Ashtanga. Ashtanga yoga was developed by Patabi Joyce, who passed away, I think, about 3 to 5 years ago. I can't quite remember. He's going to be 100 years old. He would have been 100 years old in July. And Patabi Joyce was from Mysore in the south of India. And Ashtanga, Patabi Joyce and BKS Iyengar, they were kind of like they had this weird, I don't know if it was healthy or unhealthy rivalry where they were taught by the same teacher, and I think his name was Krishnamacharya. Might have the pronunciation wrong, but I'm not a teacher, I'm just a student. And so they had different philosophies, but similar things. So the people that go to Ashtanga are generally A types of people. They're people that like to work hard, that are driven, and that's definitely the way that I was when I stumbled upon it 16 years ago. What the difference between Ashtanga yoga and Iyengar yoga is, rather than holding postures, in Ashtanga you only hold the postures for about 5 breaths. and you do these connecting moves. So you're basically moving almost the entire time. And a practice can last, an average practice is probably about an hour and a half long. So, and you're supposed to do it 6 days a week. So it's a badass practice. I suppose all yoga is pretty badass in any way that you think about it. A lot of yoga, different types of yoga that we know now have come from Iyengar and Ashtanga, say like Yin yoga or power yoga. They're kind of derivatives, vinyasa yoga. There's a lot of derivatives that have come from those two style yogas. So fourth type of yoga, very typical type of yoga, is a Bikram yoga or a hot yoga. Bikram yoga was really developed in the 1970s, and it's practicing in a hot room like, I can't remember how, it's like at least 100 degrees, maybe it's 90 degrees, something. You do about 26 postures, and between the postures and the heat of the room, you are like a dripping puddle. And people swear by it. Hot yoga is kind of a derivative of Bikram yoga done in a hot room. And the fifth type of yoga, popular type of yoga, there's so many different types of yoga that I think would be really good for you, Kristen, is the restorative yoga. It's a healing yoga. It's a holding yoga. So you will hold poses. You probably use bolsters. And it's just meant to bring restoration and healing. People that do restorative yoga really often are very sensitive, or teachers that teach restorative yoga are often very sensitive to the needs of people dealing with either injuries or stress or so if you're having an injury or if you're just starting out, I'd say restorative or hatha yoga are really good ones to just start off with and just see. They may either feel spot on great for you, or they'll feel too slow and you need more. And then you can move on to giving an Ashtanga or a power yoga a try, or an Iyengar yoga a try, or a hot room type of yoga like Bikram a try. I'm going to put all of these on my website because I know it's a lot of information, but there'll be links to all of these on my website so you can really delve in and dig deeper. Now, how the hell do you find a yoga teacher? How do you do it? So I'll tell you how I got into a yoga, and I was working at a gym, and I just decided to pop in and take a yoga class. I really highly recommend, if you've never done a yoga class before, is to not do it through a studio. Do it through a gym, do it through the YMCA, do it through the community center, a very generic, non-attached yoga place. The reason is that a lot of really great yoga teachers have to teach all over the place for their livelihood. And at a place like the Y or a health club, gym, community center, they're going to make their yoga probably generally appealing to kind of a variety of people. It's a really awesome way versus going into a studio where maybe you might feel intimidated by the yoga people there who actually seem like, they really know what they're doing, or might feel more advanced. Going to more of a non-attached place is really helpful, and that's what I did. But the teachers are always really good. They generally come from studios. For me, my first teacher at a gym where I was living in Encinitas actually happened to be attached to probably one of the most insanely awesome schools in the world, which was Tim Miller's Ashtanga Center in Encinitas, California. And if you know about Ashtanga, you know that Tim Miller was, I'm not even going to get into it, it's just too boring, but let's face it, if you know about Ashtanga yoga, you know who Tim Miller was. So it was very fortuitous, maybe auspicious for me, that I was in a place at a gym where a teacher was a really, really awesome yoga teacher. So that's what my first thing. That's how you want to find. Go to your local Y. Forget going to the yoga studio because that might just throw you off and may turn you off all completely. Dip your toes in by going to somewhere local like a YMCA. A second thing is recce stuff online. There are so many. I would, like when I was looking for at Kristen's neck of the woods and looking at all the different types of studios in Anchorage, Alaska, I could really see which one I gravitated to. You can really check out the teachers, see who you like a lot. The third thing is, if you're not interested in going to a class at all, I found this site online that looks awesome, and it's called doyogawithme.com. Again, there'll be links to it on my website, where there are free online classes. It looks like a great site for practicing yoga online. Of course, that takes a discipline. You need to get your ass onto a mat in front of, to be able to sit there in front of your computer or iPad or whatever, to be able to sit there and do it. But if you've got that interest and that discipline to practice like that, I think that could be fantastic. All right, so those are a few different ways to find a class. Of course, you can ask someone. You can also ask me if you need any recommendations of yoga places. I'm happy to know. I've done a bit of traveling in the last 16 years, have an idea of certain places around the world that I can maybe give you some insight on. Now, how do you pick a yoga teacher? I have to say I'm a pretty hard marker when it comes to my yoga teachers. This is what is important. This is my personal criteria for a good yoga teacher. Number one, they must be a student for at least 10 years, dedicated in the type of practice and the type of yoga they teach. So they must have practiced for 10 years. So this is going to probably cancel out, unless a 25-year-old has been really practicing yoga and the type of yoga that I'm practicing since they were 15, it's going to cut them out as a teacher for me. It depends where you're at, too. Like, if you're in a place where there's only one yoga teacher and they're awesome and they're 20 years old, fantastic. Go for it if that works for you. I'm just saying, for me, I feel like someone has to, I think yoga does have the potential for injury. I want someone who really knows the body really well, really knows what I'm going through as a student, and has really done the time themselves, because it's just like I think any profession, you need to be on the other end of it to know what it feels like to really be a good technician in it. So yeah, my teacher needs to be a student for at least 10 years, dedicated to what they do. They need to be certified in some way, shape, or form. There's in America and Australia, and I think the UK, probably all parts of the Western world, you need to be certified. I think you need at least minimum 200 hours. I think it's like between 200 and 500 hours of certification. A lot of this has to do with insurance-wise. To teach in a public or private space, to teach more people, you have to be insured, and to be insured, you have to have certification. So it has to do with that. I don't necessarily have to have someone who is authorized to teach by, I think it's the IDEA or Yoga Alliance or one of those things. But they need to have the certification in the type of yoga that they do. For example, the type of yoga that I practice, Ashtanga yoga, there isn't really an hourly amount of things. The teachers that are certified, they've been to Mysore, India, a gazillion times. They've practiced for so long. They've got the go-ahead from the main teacher over there to teach. I mean, they really have to do the time. So I basically need my teachers to be certified in some way, shape, or form, that they've actually done the time and the type of yoga that they teach. I prefer my teachers over 40. It really comes back to probably in just doing the math. If they have to be a student for 10 years, they would have had to spend quite a lot of time to get their certification. I just need someone to be able to relate to my where I'm at and to completely understand. There's some people that are awesome teachers in their 20s and really they're old souls and completely get it. When I go to my teacher, she's a few years older than me, so she's in her mid-50s. She's got much younger assistants who are in their 20s who are fantastic. They're so good, but they are assistants. That's just me. I like people who walk the talk, who've done it for a long time. I really, really value that from a teacher. I like a teacher who encourages self-practice. So if you have a teacher that is telling you that the only way they can practice yoga is by coming to their class, I'd run a mile. I need my teachers to be able to show me ways that I can practice on my own. My teacher is really, really adamant about the idea of self-practice. And the type of yoga one thing I forgot to say about Ashtanga, it's a practice where you can practice it by yourself once you learn how to do it. And that's primarily how I practice. I really only go to a class once every couple weeks or so. On a good, generally speaking. So I need a teacher that's humble. I've had teachers before, not my regular teachers, but just teachers along the way who act like gods, who put on this whole thing. I can't. I need them just to be humble and normal. They should not be woo-woo, have themselves on a pedestal. I won't do that. I need a teacher that continues to practice. I want to see my teacher practicing. My teacher, every now and then I see her practicing. She won't teach a class and she'll just be in the class practicing along with us. So I need a teacher who's still a student, who still feels like they are learning. That's really important to me. And in fact, that attitude completely changed my life, because at the time where I started practicing yoga, I really felt like I didn't value the idea of learning, whereas when I started doing yoga, I really saw the value of being a student, the value of perpetually learning. And I think that a good teacher understands that the more you know, the more you need to know. The more you know, the less you know, and that's the kind of teachers, the ones who I want to be with, the ones who are still gravitating towards knowledge, expanding what they know, sharing what they know. So those are my criteria for a good teacher. Those are hard boxes to tick. But if you go on the yoga path, just pick one of those things, one thing, and it might just be, if I had to pick the most important thing, I'd probably pick a teacher who's been dedicated to the practice that they're teaching for quite a long time. Just has a lot of time under their belt. If beggars can't be choosers, if you have someone who's only been practicing for 2 months and they're good and they're kind, that could be the perfect teacher for you. But these are the things that are important to me as a student. The equipment that you need for practicing yoga is, obviously you need a mat. A lot of times you'll go to a yoga studio and they can give you a mat to borrow. I just really don't like this, that people's feet are on that mat, their sweaty bodies are on that mat. Even metaphysically speaking, you got someone's energy. Maybe they were in a bad mood. Maybe they were sick. Maybe they were, it's dirty. It's a dirty thing. I wouldn't even want to see what would happen if someone laid a swab on one of those mats that are rented out or you can borrow. I don't use the kind of mats. Back in the day, they used to sell these really crazy, rubbery, weird mats. There's now really good eco-friendly mats. I think mine's kind of like an eco mat. I think they're between $50 and $75. I use a mat that I can fold into quarters because I take it with me traveling. Rather than rolling up in a thing, I'll fold it and stick it in my suitcase. So just a light thing. I also have a much thicker black mat, which is really good if you're doing things like heavy duty things like headstands and stuff. So I've got a couple of those. I don't wear any fancy clothes. I don't really wear any Lululemon business. I just like kind of stretchy, loose Yoga pants, just like loose ones. I can't stand tight stuff on me. It really bothers me for some reason. I might wear some shorts, or I'll wear like just comfy yoga pajama kind of pants, sports bra, t-shirt, or a sleeveless shirt, something like that. Just really, really light. Obviously no shoes. Sometimes yoga studios will have blankets and eye masks. Again, it's a hygiene thing. So I sometimes will bring a towel with me, or I bring a sarong that I can use as a blanket. And occasionally, if you can get nice eye pillows, or sometimes I'll just throw my t-shirt over my head when you have a little rest after, which is the best part of yoga. Okay, I feel like I've gone way too long. I could talk about yoga all day long, and so maybe I'll talk more about it, but those are just some basic things about starting a yoga practice. So if we have to do a big takeaway about everything that I've said, here's the takeaway. Go to your local YMCA, go to your local community center or school that has some yoga classes. Okay, if you're curious about yoga, try those first before a major studio. You're going to get probably a really good teacher, but he or she is probably going to make the class more adaptable to just general population, rather than going to a yoga studio and getting overwhelmed or maybe even turned off by some of the weirdness that can go with yoga. Second thing is, find the best teacher that you can, and be willing to try a bunch of teachers. Just because you go to, and this can be for the type of yoga that you do too, just because you go to class and it's not your type of yoga, or the teacher's not your type of yoga, don't get turned off. Try someone else. Try another type. You will find, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So just keep on trying different types until you get what you want. There are so many different types of teachers. There are so many different types of yoga out there. If you have any problems, please contact me, Susan@thechangeguru.net, or on Facebook or on YouTube, and I will point you in the direction of what's right as far as a teacher goes. And again, look at my criteria of what I just said for what's a good teacher. You'll just get the gist, just someone that you really like, that you respect, that you gravitate to, that doesn't give you a yuck feeling. Just really need someone that you have a what's the word I'm looking at? Kind of, there's like a nice feeling between you two. It's really important. So kiss a lot of frogs. You're going to find the right type of practice and the right type of teacher, and then also just start off, maybe skip the whole yoga studio and go straight for the community thing, and just keep on looking for yoga. Keep on looking for yoga in your life, because this is what I can say about yoga, how it's helped me. It's taught me discipline. It has held me together during times where I'm either blocked, or I'm not feeling well, or I'm going through perimenopause and menopause. I really, truly believe that it helps out our whole hormonal system. Besides the physical effects, I think it really works on a very subtle cellular level. I 100% believe that, and I see that in my own life. It's opened up doors to travel and adventure. I've gotten to meet some really amazing people and seen some really, really cool things in this world because of my exploration of yoga. It increases my knowledge about philosophy, whether even not only Eastern philosophy, but Western philosophy. So it really makes me knowledgeable in a lot of different areas. And it's just rolling out my mat every single day in, day out, regardless of how I'm feeling, gives me an anchor. It gives me a stableness through my day, which makes my life better and better. And I can safely say that yoga has benefited me in every single aspect of my life. Back to what I always talk about: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Yoga practice has done that for me. I'll talk about it more as we go along, because I feel like I've only scratched the surface of it. But if you've gotten value from this, I would love to know your thoughts on what you learned from this podcast. If you're going to try yoga out, tell me about your first class. I'd love to hear it. Post your comments either on my website, on the YouTube channel, on my Facebook page, and tell me about your yoga experience. If you like my podcasts, here's how you can return some love to me. Go over to iTunes and rate me. Rating is really, really helpful because it helps me get found. It's as simple as that. Without any ratings, without any reviews, I won't be found by other women who are going through midlife. So that is one way you can really support what I'm doing. And leave an honest review, okay? That would help me out so much. Get on my newsletter. That'd be beautiful too. I'd really love to connect with you there. And that's my message. Go try some yoga. Dip your toes into yoga so you can start touching your toes. It will change your life. I promise. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Have a super week. I look forward to talking with you next time. Until then, bye for now.